All right, guys, thank you for joining us for this episode of Talking with Marshall Paddons. Today, I am joined with a brand new theater company to the Tampa Bay St. Pete area called TheatreFor. That's TheatreFor, TheatreFor. Today, I'm joined by Graham Jones, Michael Cote's co-founders of the theater. You can find them at 1863 North Highland Avenue in Clearwater or online at TheatreFor.com. Once again, that's TheatreFor.com. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today. So this is exciting. Theater company finally opening up.
It will be exciting.
It will be exciting. When's the opening date has been pushed back a few times. What's the projected?
The projected opening date is now August 22nd.
Okay.
We're opening with Mike's show.
Academia Nuts.
Mm-hmm.
So I was looking at you guys' schedule, and you have the 3 shows planned right now, correct? Or is it 4?
We have more than 4 planned. It's just that we haven't told anybody about any other than the first 3.
Gotcha. Yeah, because your website only shows the first 3.
Right.
And it's kind of an interesting collab because 2 of them are Shakespeare oriented, right? You have The Man from Stratford, which is an original piece with a collection of works. And then Desdemona, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's about the wife of Othello and her relationship with her mother's housemaid.
Well, her own scullery maid / housemaid / fille de chambre. It depends on the stage of the show that you're in as to which one she really is. And Bianca, the great whore of Cyprus.
Bianca. And that's the housemaid?
No. Emilia is the housemaid. Bianca, they're on Cyprus. They're in a palace on Cyprus in a laundry room.
Mm-hmm.
And Desdemona has lost the handkerchief. And Othello is a little annoyed. Emilia is there consoling her and helping her to find it, but unknown to Desdemona, Emilia is the one who stole the handkerchief, gave it to her squeeze, who then passed it on to Bianca's squeeze. Bianca being, as I said, the great whore of Cyprus. She runs the bordello that services the army.
I was wondering how the handkerchief worked in because it's Desdemona, a play about a handkerchief, and you're like, wait, what?
Paula Vogel, who wrote it, is one of my favorite playwrights, and she's still alive, still writing up in New York, still having a good time doing theater, and she always does these really unusual, strange pieces, mostly about women, and how women get on in the world. And this is one of those. And this is a beautiful piece where the 3 women are all trapped. They're all trapped in their lives. They dream about getting out, and we watch their dreams as the show goes on, and we hear their aspirations, but they, in the end, don't get anywhere. Desdemona dies a week later, killed by her husband. Emilia stays as a scullery maid in the castle, and Bianca stays as the madam in the whorehouse. It's quite sad.
Oh.
But there's a lot of funny moments in it as they talk about all of this.
Mm. And so those 2 are very juxtaposed, I think, to Academia Nuts.
Oh, yeah.
Which it's from reading this, I read the synopsis anyway, is a sort of an offbeat comedy about a professor who moves into the house of a poet, and that poet is the subject of his life's work.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then 3 people move in as well, a former couple and then another woman.
Well, they don't move in, more like an invasion.
Okay.
Than anything else. And yes, the Peter Smedferson has studied E.R. Lennox, the poet, for his life. He's made that his life's goal. And he ends up living in the house that Lennox occupied for a while before he died. Then before you meet Peter, really, you meet Tammy and Judith. Judith is a contemporary of Peter's in that she also is a Lennox scholar and they have communicated back and forth. They have never met in person. It's letters, emails, things like that. And Tammy is Tammy. she's on the run from some legal issues in Atlantic City.
Mm-hmm.
She and Clothing have a rather loose arrangement. Neither one depend on the other, so to speak. And her car breaks down in front of Peter's house, and so basically she goes in to get warm, and then hilarity ensues. The other character is Stuart, who is Judith's ex-husband, who is the moral equivalent of pond scum.
Okay.
And anything for a buck type of thing. And he's Judith has uncovered a secret that is supposed to be residing in Lennox's house. And Stuart is bound and determined to tear it apart brick by brick to get it before anybody else does. Judith has ventured to New Hampshire, where the house is, to warn Peter about Stuart's impending invasion. There's a mix-up of identities. And I like to consider this an intellectual farce. It's not like the bedroom farce where you have slamming doors all over the place, although doors do play an important role in the show.
Well, as any good farce.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's not the same typical silly type of thing. There's a kind of an intellectual, what I consider an intellectual aspect to it. So
Excellent.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, right on. So I kind of jumped to the end there and talked about the season to start with, but let's get to know who you guys are as individuals. So I'm assuming you didn't know each other in childhood. No.
At least not this child.
Right.
No. He grew up in New England. I grew up in Old England.
Oh, I got you. Right.
Yeah, so,
Only separated by an ocean.
right.
Mhm.
Right.
And a language.
In a language, yeah. A common language at that. So, Graham, we'll start with you, right? So you grew up in England. Whereabouts?
Yes.
Okay.
I was born in the Midlands in a place called Wolverhampton, actually in Sedgley, which is a little suburb of Wolverhampton. And my dad was in the fire service, and he had this unfortunate thing about being promoted all the time. So we lived in lots of different places, Dudley, Worcester, South Wales, Winchester, North Wales, various places. I got sent off to boarding school when I was 12 years old. Went to King's in Worcester, which is an interesting place. Little side note there, it's one of the schools founded by Henry VIII, so it had a little history about it. And every time I went home for the summer holidays, it was to a different house.
Oh, okay.
So, lots of fun. And then I came here via Australia and the West Coast.
Mm. And how old were you when you came to America?
That was 1984, so it was a while back.
It was a while back. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when did you find theater?
When I was 4 years old.
Okay.
I was cast in the school play. It was a non-speaking part. I was a tree.
Mhm.
In the next semester, I got promoted. I got a speaking part. I was a clock.
Hey. What show were you a clock in?
I have no idea.
He's like, I'm in fourth grade, man. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I was 5 years old.
Right.
They just said, say this at this time. And
And he nailed it.
Mhm.
And have you been doing theater ever since then, or did you
On and off. I did theater on and off throughout my life. And then when I was about 25 or so, life interfered.
Mhm.
And so I worked and did family things for quite some time. And it wasn't until the middle 90s that I came back to theater about 30 years ago.
What was your, I guess, favorite role as an adult in theater? The thing you felt most satisfied doing?
You mean what I've actually done or what I'd like to have done?
Let's do both. Let's do actually done and then like to have done.
Actually done.
Let's do like to have done first, and maybe that'll.
Like to have done.
Oh, gosh.
Oh gosh, there are so many.
Right.
One of my favorite roles is in a really funny show called Kitchen Witches. Okay, where I play the cameraman, and you're on stage the entire time because the kitchen witches are just making a mess of the place, and the cameraman doubles as the guy who cleans up the stage. And he has nothing to say. He just photographs what's going on, does the cleanup and everything, until the very end when he closes the show. One of the kitchen witches asks him a question, and his answer is, "Wash your hands." And the show ends.
What's the setup to that? Like, what's the setup to wash your hands?
Well, it's a theme.
There's got to be a payoff, right?
It runs through the whole show, It's that one of them is always saying, and before you do this, before you pick up the meat, you wash your hands. Before you handle this, you wash your hands, right? So,
what was the question she asked him?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember.
Yeah, right.
I just knew my cue was when she looked at me, I say, "Wash your hands." Yeah, that was that was fun. What would I like to do? Gosh, there are lots of meaty roles in Shakespeare. There are others in other shows. There are a ton of them. I couldn't possibly pick one out.
So basically, you say you have your work cut out for you from here on out.
Yeah, mostly I do directing these days.
Gotcha.
I don't act so much anymore.
Do you prefer that to acting, or?
I think directing is interesting. It's a lot more work than acting. When I was an actor, I always thought directing was easy and just a snap. Well, you just tell people what to do. But now I do it. It's a lot harder than acting. You have to understand the entire show. You have to understand every character in it. You need to be able to see what's going on from each character's perspective and the audience's perspective at the same time. So, you're this multifaceted animal, which is fun. It might be a lot more work, but it's a lot more fun too.
Sure. Usually the things that involve a lot more work end up being a lot more rewarding. Absolutely. So, Mike, what about you? So, born in New England?
Yes.
Right.
I lived all over New England before coming to Florida. When I was just after my freshman year in high school, we moved from Salisbury, Massachusetts, which is right on the coast, big summer spot, always hustle bustle type of thing, 30 miles from Boston, to a small town in Vermont. Now, when we moved to Vermont, there were more cows in the state than there were people. So, and there were more people in my high school freshman class that consisted of 3 separate towns than there were in the town that we moved to.
Okay.
So, culture shock. But like Graham, I started doing theater when I was, in elementary school, and went from there and took breaks now and again. But when after graduating from college, one thing led to another, and I ended up becoming a ballroom dance instructor for 8 years, and found that I really enjoyed the performance aspect more than the teaching aspect. So after leaving that, I got involved with community theater as a choreographer, and one thing led to another. And through a mutual friend, I started working with Ronald McDonald. Doing live shows and touring with him, handling his tech setup and stuff. And he was also the gentleman that was Ronald, was a magician and a TV host and things. So that opened a lot of doors, to the point where I started my own entertainment company, started doing singing telegrams and balloon deliveries. It was the first company in New Hampshire to do spoken word balloon deliveries. And I wrote all of my own songs to fit the occasion, and went from there to doing roasts of people for their birthdays and such and stuff, doing characters for bridal parties and baby showers, things like that. And then went from there into doing original murder mysteries for companies, private things. Got into the dinner theater aspect, and went from there. And then had a kid and moved to Florida. And I figured, okay, theater's done.
Right.
I've had my shot. I've had a good run.
That sort of seems to be the trend, is when somebody says, "Oh, I had a kid, so I spent the next 20 years not doing theater." Right.
Well, mine was only about 7.
Okay.
Once my ex and I split up, all of a sudden I didn't have anything to do. She had the kids, and so I went to auditions for a local community theater, figuring I'll see what it's like. Maybe do one just to get it out of my system again. And I've been with that organization for 18 years.
Can you say which theater that was?
Dunedin Showcase Theater.
Dunedin Showcase. Is it still open?
Yes.
Okay, right on. I've actually never come across them, so.
Not many people have.
Yeah.
We're actually considered the theater company for Dunedin because we work out of their community center and everything is kind of mutual there. But we're, after meeting Graham and Dee and the rest of the TheatreFor people, it's like we all have kind of the same goal, is to get away from the uber control that, communities especially have. And, there's some things you can do, some things you can't do. Some places are a little more stringent about their rules than others. And we just wanted to have a place where we could do what we want to do and not have to worry about the, trying to appease a lot of people that really don't understand theater as much as we do.
So that brings me to my question. How did the collective of TheatreFor come together? Because there's 3 of you, right? Yeah. Because Steve Bell as well.
There are actually
6, 7.
6 or 7 of us. Yeah. We have a couple of silent partners.
Gotcha.
Who will remain silent.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. The active partners, the ones down here, are Dee O'Brien, Stephen Bell, Susan Dearden, Mike Cote, and myself. And we all have a lot of experience in theater. My Dee O'Brien, who is coincidentally my wife and also your director in the Shakespeare show
Indeed.
that we're putting on.
Yeah, The Man from Stratford.
The Man from Stratford, which is a series of vignettes that have been
curated,
yeah, yes, yeah. And glued together with stuff that Dee's written herself. She's an interesting person, apart from being my wife, which, in my mind makes her very interesting. She had the longest running Shakespeare company for teenagers in the United States for a long, long time. It ran for 36 years up in Mamaroneck in New York. And so she knows a little bit about Shakespeare.
Just a tad. Yeah, from working with her, I can tell that she knows her stuff. Like, she really does.
It's scary. She actually remembers most of the lines from most of the plays.
Yeah, just to hear her in conversation, she will drop Shakespeare lines, and you're like, wow, okay. Yeah. From just about anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Shakespeare wrote it all first.
Right. I think it was Rob Zombie said one time that everything in metal has already been done by Black Sabbath, and we're just sort of rehashing it and rearranging it. I think maybe the same can be applied to Shakespeare, as he just sort of wrote everything, and we're all just sort of taking those themes and rehashing it and rearranging it. Yeah. Yeah.
If it was, in fact, Shakespeare who wrote all that.
Sure.
And not Edward de Vere.
Right. Was there potentially, in fact, a William Shakespeare?
Oh, there was definitely a William Shakespeare. He was an entrepreneur, came from Stratford-on-Avon. He was a part owner of the Globe Theatre, a part owner of other theatres before that. He was relatively well known and written about, but his only personal writings that actually survive are half a dozen variations of his signature on things.
Gotcha. So
there are no actual manuscripts in his hand.
So everything else was written clearly by somebody else, whether they were dictating it or just wrote it.
Or it was all lost because the way that the theater worked in those days, it was very ephemeral. They didn't expect it to last 420 years.
So much like the BBC.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, exactly like the BBC used to use old Doctor Who tapes to record new shows on.
Correct. Right. Yeah. We don't need the flying circus anymore.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we just use that tape. And so the paper would get reused and it just disappeared.
Man. Crazy. So how did you guys end up meeting?
I think the first time we met was when we did Le Pan Agile.
Yes,
together.
at West Coast Players.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my character. I can't remember yours.
Freddie.
Yes.
This was a Steve Martin
Okay.
Picasso at the Le Pan Agile, which is very fantastical. And I played Freddie, the owner of a bar that people like to hang out in.
Mm-hmm.
Picasso was a regular. And the Le Pan Agile is an actual bar in Marseille?
No, in Montmartre. In Paris.
I know it was an M.
Yeah, I've been there.
But the place centers around a meeting of Picasso, Einstein, and eventually Elvis.
Mm-hmm.
In this bar. I played the bartender and owner
Mm-hmm.
of the thing that was just had all kinds of issues that had nothing to do with Einstein and Picasso. If I remember, you were one of the regulars.
Yes. Yeah. One of the incidental characters, not a large role, but one of the we need some funny stuff here. Let's have this guy do it.
Mm-hmm.
The
Schmendeman. Right?
Schmendeman, yes. The inventor of Schmendamite.
Schmendamite? What's Schmendamite?
It's a wonderful building material that never rots, never goes away. It's permanent and it's easy to work. And if it were real, it would be a substitute for concrete and brick and wood and steel and
Right.
and everything.
But don't we have stuff like that already? Is that sort of the joke? And Schmendamite is
Well, no,
you're sort of reinventing the wheel.
kind of, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
It's the universal material, and Schmendeman never became famous, but the other three did.
So you met at West Coast Players, and what year about was this?
Gosh,
It's got to be 10,
more than that.
12, I don't know.
Close to 20 years.
After
ago.
9/11?
That long.
Yeah.
So after 9/11? Yeah.
9/11.
Okay, right on. So I'm assuming that on that first encounter, there was not, hey, let's start a theater company together.
Oh, heck no.
Yeah, right.
No. It took ages before that came about.
Mm-hmm.
He did get me involved with Dee and doing Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I
No,
thank you for that.
How did you find your first Shakespeare experience?
Scary as hell.
It is a bit nerve-wracking, to be honest. This is mine too, and it's I feel fortunate because I feel like I understand the intent of what's being said, but then when you try to play the intent in your own language and say the words in a common language but not the same language, it seems to be a bit of a hang-up.
Yes. I keep telling people that Shakespeare's plays and the King James Bible were written about the same time.
Mm.
The language is the same.
Mm-hmm.
So all of you Christians out there that read the King James Bible, you can read Shakespeare. It's you can understand it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
That's my problem.
It seems to be that, like the Bible says itself, right? There's nothing new under the sun, and Shakespeare seems to hit on just those timeless sort of perils that even we experience today, because
Yes.
there's really nothing new under the sun. I always found that, especially at the semi-professional level, when people attempt to do Shakespeare, they get in their head that it's got to be this big, grandiose, every word is a thing of poetry, but it sort of reads conversationally.
Yes, it does.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
and it's been turned into musicals and comedies and all sorts of stuff. There's a lot of derivative works
to fit it into present day type of situations.
And it's fun, and it's got a lot of good things to say. There's murder, mayhem, there's lovers, broken relationships,
mistaken identities.
Yeah,
sword fights, betrayal,
magic,
everything. Yeah, it's got the whole.
It's the Princess Bride, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's even got fantasy.
Right.
It's
witches.
Yeah. Witches and wizards on
fairies,
fairies,
kings, and
everything.
So when was it that? So who was the first one to look at the other one and go, you know what we should do? We should open a bar.
Well, Stephen Bell, who's one of our partners, just before COVID, opened up TheatreFor in Clearwater.
Okay.
And
are you telling me that there's been TheatreFor, Theater 2, Theater 3?
No, we skipped Theater 2 and Theater 3 and went straight to Theater 4.
That one fell down, burned over, sank into the swamp, and then,
Yeah. Stephen opened up TheatreFor, and the show that he opened with was Venus in Fur, David Ives' piece, which is, a great piece of theater. It's a two-person piece. It's fun. I like it. It's a little noir. It's just the sort of thing that we would like to do at TheatreFor. So strangely enough, we were Stephen and I were talking one day, and I suggested to him that it might be easier now that COVID was just finished, that if we had some partners and did it again, except with more people. And he thought that was a great idea. So we fished around for some partners, starting with Dee, and she said yes. And we approached Mike and Susan, and they said yes. And all of a sudden, we had a theater company.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It almost seems so easy, but yet so difficult.
Well, that was a long time ago.
Right, because it hasn't been.
That was in 2022, in the middle of 2022. COVID was winding up or down, whichever way you prefer it. And so we were getting out and about and meeting people again. And we got together and decided to start the company. It actually was formed on December 26th, 2022. That's when the first corporate filings were done.
Oh.
And it took all of...
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, indeed, yeah.
It took all of...
You're now $20,000 in debt.
Yeah. We spent the next year looking for somewhere to inhabit. We looked for a space to lease forever. It's just... We knew where we wanted to be. It was just finding the right spot. And finally we did, towards the end of 23.
Why? So why that area then? Right, because it's a strip mall, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's easy to get to. It's, very close to main arteries. It's off of Sunset and North Highland.
I'm not too familiar with Clearwater, so those are
35 minutes from anywhere in the county.
Gotcha. Perfect.
So that was one of the main reasons we would have preferred to be closer to US 19 because that would give us a slightly larger audience area, but that wasn't to be.
See, now that's interesting to me. How do you go about looking at a map and saying that if we're located here, we can expect these people to show up or be able to market to these groups of people, but if we locate here, we can expect to market to these groups of people?
I think traffic patterns have a lot to do with it.
Okay.
Yeah. I did it with drive time. I just sort of guessed on drive time from the various places that people were on offer. How long does it take to get there?
So to you, is that a big part of why people don't come to theater these days? Is the drive time?
No. It's just that your catchment area is probably 30 to, no more than 45 minutes away. Nobody's going to drive more than 45 minutes to come and see you.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter how
crazy.
good
I
you
agree.
are.
Yeah.
Unless you're Elton John,
Right.
you know,
And I'm not.
no.
Yeah. I'm thankful people make the 20-minute drive, and I'm like, oh, thank you so much for going.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why don't people go to the theater now? I think we got out of the habit during COVID,
Right.
and the younger people that would have taken up where the older people sort of fell off during COVID didn't because of COVID, and so it's more difficult now. So we have a smaller smaller pool to pick from, and part of our goal is to make theater more interesting to younger people, not necessarily youngsters, but people from 30 to 50.
Mm-hmm.
If we can get them into the theaters, that would be a wonderful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're all old folks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's unfortunately, sad to say, another issue that a lot of theaters are running into. A lot of the longtime investors and longtime season ticket holders are shuffling off the mortal coil, so to speak. And so they're organizations that were leaning and depending on that age group are finding that age group is diminishing.
Mm. The 30 to 50-year-olds?
And then, no.
Oh, the past, yeah. The 50 to...
50 to
yeah.
older.
Yeah.
50 plus. And I think that, so we're starting young.
Mm-hmm.
We want to get the younger people in. Mm-hmm. We're not saying we don't want the older people.
Right.
We want to get everybody. We want to
Mm-hmm.
widen the
Hook them while they're young, like the tobacco industry.
One of the things that one of the things in our charter is to attract young people. We plan on having classes for teenagers and post-teens, and engaging them in theater and doing it at a price which they can afford,
Mm-hmm.
or their parents can afford. A lot of the places around these days charge, $300 or $400 a week.
A lot
Of money.
Yeah.
And we have a foundation, and the goal of the foundation is to support our educational efforts.
Mm.
And we want to bring theater to younger people at as close to zero as we can.
Sure.
We want to charge them a couple of bucks so that there's some value in it for them
Mm-hmm.
before they walk through the door.
Right.
But not the crazy money that other people are charging.
Do you find it hard to sort of separate the love for providing theater with the need for monetary value to stay afloat, to stay open?
I get that people charge in order to stay open. I get that. I have no problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that there's a lot of kids out there whose parents or grandparents can't afford those kind of fees that would be just as interested in theater, just as engaged by theater, and have as much to learn and gain from it, but can't afford that. And those are the kids that we want.
Excellent, yeah. And those are probably the kids that are going to give you more output at the end of the day, right? They're going to care about what they're getting into.
I have found, and Mike is probably the same or similar, that once a kid is involved in theater, doesn't matter where they come from, who they are, how much money they have, they're involved.
Mm-hmm.
Very definitely. But to kind of go back to what we were talking about, we're working with Dunedin Showcase Theater. We have a kids division also, and we don't charge at all for the kids.
Oh, wow.
They come in. We do 2 kids shows every year, but we have found that we kind of think that if there was some type of monetary, it doesn't have to be a lot.
Mm-hmm.
There would be more, and this kind of goes towards the parents.
Mm-hmm.
There would be more value in, what we're doing with the kids rather than, every Monday and Wednesday we have a babysitter from, free babysitter from here to there.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got some kids that, would be there regardless. They love the theater, but we also get some kids that are like, yeah, my parents have stopped me off.
Yeah, they wanted me to do something.
Yeah.
And this is it.
And so, we're kind of reevaluating whether or not we want to initiate a small fee. It won't be much because we are tied in with the community center, and that's part of, what the whole deal is with them. But to develop the value in the parents as opposed to the kids. The kids, for the most part, all want to be there. They enjoy it. They have a good time. They're with their friends. And we have a lot of homeschool kids. So this is a social aspect for them as well. But the parents, again, need to understand where their kids are coming from. They don't always see, I want to do theater. Yeah, okay.
Right.
Kind of thing. My parents were like that.
Sure. Yeah. Mine were too when I was younger. Was like, okay, but also get a job.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I did, and then I didn't come back to theater until I was in college. And like you said, once you got invested, it was like, oh, okay, this is what I'm doing, and I don't care about anything else. This is the pursuit. I want to entertain people.
Yeah.
And there's so much reward from doing that.
Absolutely.
That it's almost infectious.
Yes, it is. From my experience as an actor on stage, if I can call myself that.
You can.
I would. So this is a safe space, safe call yourself whatever you want.
Right. A lot of people would ask me, don't you get nervous? Don't you get butterflies? Don't you get stage fright?
Mm-hmm.
No, absolutely not. No. Once I get on that stage, those people out there, they're my people, and they give me the energy. They give me the wherewithal to continue and do what I do. I love it. They give me all that energy.
Right. I know it's always that moment before you go out the first time. I always have my I loosen up or whatever, and then you cross that threshold. Those lights hit you, and you have those people in front of there. Now you're just on the roller coaster. The track's already been laid. The turns are already known. Roll with it.
Mm-hmm. Once you're out on the stage, it's exactly what you just was said. But prior to, and something that always stuck with me was the great Red Skelton, who did live TV shows in front of live audiences for years and years. Was once asked if he still got nervous, before a show, and he said absolutely. He goes, the day that I stop being nervous is the day that I stop doing this, because that means I don't care anymore.
It keeps you honest. Yeah. It keeps you honest. It keeps you working, right? So it's the TheatreFor Kids program. Mm-hmm. When will we expect that to sort of come on its feet, or
sometime next year, early as we can possibly make it? We want to be there for the summer. A lot of things depend on the actual opening date of TheatreFor itself.
August 22nd.
August 22nd.
August 22nd.
Yes.
Starting with Academia Nuts.
And
is that a Steve Martin too? No.
Greg Kreutz.
Greg Kreutz. Okay.
Yeah. Our fourth show is going to be Venus in Fur.
Oh, okay.
And that'll be in late January. We'll be following that up with a number of different shows, some of which we've decided on and some of which are kind of iffy. We will be doing another Steve Martin, though, Meteor Shower.
Okay.
Which is a fun piece.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to enjoy having an actor with a meteor hole in him every night.
Okay.
The actor gets struck by a meteor. And
the tech on this has got to be...
And he has a hole in him where the meteor went through. So either we're going to need to figure this out or get a lot of actors.
Sort of at the reveal of The Prestige, right? He's just been drowning himself the whole time. Yeah. So what's going to be are you guys going to be both of you directly involved in these kids' camps, or?
I won't be. I'm a grumpy old man.
Sure.
But Dee will be. She loves kids.
Okay, good.
And
I'm a grumpy old man too, but I will be involved.
Okay. And are you guys going to plan on, is the sort of the goal at the end of this to put on a production using the kids in the camp, or?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Kids love being on stage.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, their parents and grandparents and friends of their grandparents and cousins
Aunts and uncles.
aunts and uncles, and everybody wants to come and see the kids.
Right. All absolutely lovely ticket purchasers.
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely. So that's fantastic. I had no idea that you guys are planning on doing kids sort of workshops and camps. So that's fantastic.
You're a little old for them, but
well, thanks. You know, I've been struggling lately. I just turned 40. Actually, I just turned 41. And was 40 like for you guys? Was 40 because for me it hit like 41. I was like, oh, you know, my hip's starting to hurt. My eyesight's starting to go a little bit.
My sister, who's
this kid.
My sister Kim is 15 months younger than me. And she bought me a doll for my 40th birthday. It's not really a doll, you know, like a Cabbage Patch Kid type thing. And it had embroidered on its chest, "Over the Hill." And this was my 40th birthday gift from my sister, who was 15 months younger than me.
Right. Mm. Yeah.
For my 40th, we had just finished doing a live action Western interactive weekend at a hotel, and so one of my cast members owned a comb manufacturing company. Unbeknownst to me, during the run of this show, with the 250 guests that we had from the hotel, he passed out combs imprinted with "Mike Cote is 40" on it. I didn't know about it until I found one.
Son of a bitch.
And just to be nice, a friend of mine who was also in the cast just posted a picture of one of the combs, because it was on one side it said Sweetwater Canyon, which was the fictitious town that we were in, and then on the other side it said "Mike Cote is 40." She posted a picture. She goes, "I still have these."
These, as in multiple.
Yeah. Well, there were two of them, so she could show both sides at the same time.
That's fantastic. So opening TheatreFor has not been the easiest of journeys, from what I've heard around the community. It's sort of been. So you said you started on when?
We signed the lease at the end of last year to be effective 1st of January this year, 2024.
And the first corporate paperwork were signed December 26, 2022.
Yes.
And here we are, August 22nd, 2024.
Yes.
Right. Why the long pause, as the barman said to the bear?
As I said, it took us a year to find a location, find a space that was, we thought was going to be good. Mm-hmm. And we thought all the signs were with us. The agent, the sales agent, is one of the Schimberg family.
Oh.
Schimberg fame.
Right. At the Stress Center.
At the Stress Center.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Which is a huge performing arts center here in Tampa.
Right. And the owners of the building are a
board member of
Stageworks.
Well, the daughter is the chairperson of Stageworks, and the father David is on the board at Strass. So
sounds like a match made in heaven.
We thought match made in heaven.
Yeah, because Stageworks is one of the most award-winning local theater companies in Tampa as well.
Yeah. And they were delighted to have the idea of a theater in there, and so we talked to the local fire department and said, how about it? What should we do? This is all before we signed the lease, of course. And they gave us some advice. Said, all you have to do is this, and this, and Bob's your uncle, as it were. Mm-hmm. So we did this, and this, and
turns out Bob's your aunt.
Yeah, Bob's the uncle that comes over and does WWE wrestling moves on you, and
that's the way it turned out. Yeah.
So what were the problems?
So our application for a certificate of occupancy which was filed at the beginning of, end of January, right, crashed and burned, and we found that we had all these various other things to do. So along the way, we had to hire a contractor, an architect, a mechanical engineer, an electrical engineer, an air conditioning expert, and a whole bunch of other people, and getting the all of the drawings done and all of the paperwork done to satisfy the city turned into quite the expensive nightmare. But all the paperwork's been done, all the drawings have been done. We have a permit currently, which we're operating under, doing all of the various things that we have to do. And hopefully soon we'll have the sign off on all of that work, and we'll get our certificate of occupancy and open on schedule on August 22nd. Yeah. One of the problems that we ran into was laws change from time to time. There's a 3-year cycle on the building code and the fire code, and we hit one of the 3-year cycles. 1st of January 2024 was when all the new rules came in. And what happens when you apply for certain types of changes is you're then obligated to bring the rest of the building up to current code. Mm-hmm. And that's what hit us.
Right. Yeah. Right. But I got to say, job well done, because, I mean, you walk, it's a bit like Doctor Who's police box, right? You look on the outside, you're like, oh, it's a theater in a strip mall. You open those doors and it's like, oh, there's been a lot of work done in here. And this looks fantastic. So job well done, really.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what's sort of the mission, right? You said that you wanted to sort of operate under without these strict guidelines by, I'm assuming, would be censorship, basically.
Censorship to a point.
Or at least creative control.
That's a lot of, yeah. I'll give you an example without naming names.
Sure.
I did a show, North County. It's not naming names, right? North County, and in a beautiful theater. And I knew that there were stipulations. I knew that they were very picky about what they would allow, what they wouldn't allow.
And when you say did a show, acted in it, directed in it?
Directed it.
Okay.
Directed it. And when I went in for the first production meeting, I said, okay, I know you guys don't want bare wood on the floor, so I'm going to carpet all of my set pieces. And then they're like, you have a set? Yes, I have a set. I have basically a house, a big drawing room type of thing that is very necessary. And it's like, no, we do projections. We don't do sets. Nobody told me this when I chose the show.
Mm-hmm.
For those listeners, Lenny's staring into space with his eyes wide open, looking as if he's a deer in headlights.
Yeah, like how do you do a show without a set, right? Like, what do you mean you project?
Yeah,
right.
I ended up having to build this drawing room with pipe and drape, and to say it was nightmarish is. And it was a comedy mystery thing, and it had a character called the Creeper, which is an escaped patient from a mental asylum right next door to the property, and they do all these different things. And the young lady that I cast as the Creeper is a dancer, a fencer. She does circus arts and things like that. And I said, what would really be cool is at the beginning of the first act and the beginning of the second act, if she came down from center stage on silks from the ceiling. Mm-hmm. That would be it. And before I had the words out of my mouth, the answer was no.
Right.
But no.
No. Mm-hmm.
And those are just two of the things. There were a lot of limitations that were placed on me in that circumstance. And with the Dunedin Community Center, where DST, where I'm president and was the president, where we've done for 16, 17 years, they have this humongous, it's in a gym. So you can, I mean, I've never worked in a gymnatorium, like, oh, you understand, but there's this huge air handler that just blasts away constantly. The sound is terrible. The lighting is mezza at the best. But, and again, I did Agatha Christie's 10 Little Indians, and then there were none. And at the end, the last kind of survivor hangs herself, commits suicide, hanging herself. Now, the young lady that I had cast in that role, her husband is a fire captain, and they're both former climbers, rock climbers, both rope trained. So we had it all set. All we had to do was get permission to hook it up, and again, the answer was no.
No can do.
And it's just, we don't, not that we're going to, hang anybody from the rafters at TheatreFor,
right,
but we, like to have that option should we decide to do it.
Yeah. I remember that show that he was talking about with the creeper. And if you've ever seen anyone emulate a revolving bookcase with pipe and drape, then you probably can imagine the picture.
Yeah, it's just from an audience point of view. When I go see a show, right, you walk in the doors, house lights are on, there's some level of stage lighting, and the only thing in front of you to get you ready in anticipation for the show that's about to happen is the set. And if it's just a pipe and drape set, I'm going to look to my partner and go, oh, I don't know about this one. I'll be right. I'm going to go get a beer. This is going to be a long night.
Yeah. And a lot of what the local theaters want, not so much the professional theaters, but like the community theaters and others, and small theaters around want, is light comedy and family style drama. This is their bread and butter. This is what they survive on, and musicals. And we're we're not going to do light comedy and musicals and family style dramas. We're just not going to do that. We're going to do all the other kinds of plays that are out there.
Stuff that the actors can also sink their teeth.
They're like, thank God.
Yeah.
Thank you for, yeah.
Yeah. We look for plays that, perhaps they ran well off Broadway or in the provinces and never made it into this area. Perhaps they were at festivals and were successful there, but sort of disappeared for one reason or another. All kinds of there are lots and lots and lots of plays out there that are candidates for what we'd like to do, and that is to bring good theater to our audiences. We want to not only entertain but surprise as well.
Because I would say, looking at the three shows on your website, none of them are like the traditional marquee show, right? There's no, Ken Ludwig. There's no Agatha Christie. There's no Death Trap, right? It's sort of things that you hadn't heard of before. Do you find, like, when you're structuring your season, do you not think it's necessary to sort of have a marquee anchor to your season where you can sort of hedge your losses on your other shows?
Well, based on our history, I have to answer no.
Talk to me again in 3 years, right? Yeah.
But I also think if you...
Because I hear that from a lot of the theaters in Tampa, that they think this way. It's like, I need to have this marquee show that I know I'm going to sell 70 to 80% of my seats on, so I can get away doing this show that I may only sell 30 to 40% of my available seats on. But I also tend to disagree with a lot of the direction that the sort of lock and key Tampa theaters going, in that they end up just doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, and your audience just kind of gets meh.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. So we'll be continually looking for new shows, interesting shows that have been bypassed in the past, or new takes on old shows. We don't mind doing a bit of Shakespeare. We don't mind doing a bit of restoration comedy. We don't mind doing a bit of noir. We don't mind doing a lot of stuff. We just don't want to do regular schlock.
Right. We're not doing Moon Over Buffalo.
No.
Right. Yeah. Or
you see a lot of, like in the South County, in St. Pete and stuff, you've got some of the smaller theaters that are doing things like that. They're doing stuff that is either not that well known or not known at all, and introducing the public to really good theater, and that's what we want to do. North Central, so we're not looking at intruding on what they're doing, because that's what we want to do. And going back to the drive time, I don't think that we'll cross paths all that much.
What that sounds great and all, but how do you get your audience to trust you then? Right? I'm offering you something that you're not familiar with, but believe me, it's good. Right? Like, how do you get them to buy into that?
First of all, they don't know they're looking for it.
Okay. Right.
So they have to be educated. And the only way that you can educate an audience is by word of mouth. So it starts with you and your friends coming to see the shows. It starts with our actors bringing their friends to see the shows, and word of mouth getting out that we're a good destination. We'll take care of social media and the website and things like that to make sure that the information on what we're doing is current and available. But we have to build a reputation, and that reputation has to be good.
And it's going to take time.
And it's going to take time.
Yeah.
And we're not going to get rich.
No, we're in theater, for crying out loud. Rich? Come on. I think it was, I'm pretty sure it was Robin Williams. He was reflecting on his commencement speech when he graduated from Juilliard. And I forget who he said was giving it to him, but he's, the commencement guys. I made you all knights of theater, unless you want to get paid, in which case you'll go and do film.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, thanks. Yeah, thanks. I need that. So the creative style is pretty off hands then. It's I think you're interesting. I think you got a groove going. Here's a platform for you to operate on.
Yeah, we, four of us, Stephen, Mike, Dee, and myself, are relatively experienced directors, and we will be directing our own shows. We do agree amongst ourselves, that yeah, sure, that'd be a good show, go for it. And we'll also be inviting in other people to stage shows that they already have in hand or really want to do. If we later on, it'll be bringing guest directors in. But that's it. Yeah, pretty much hands off. We're all pitching in and helping. Like, for instance, Mike and I are building the sets. Stephen's doing lighting design for all of us, and
Graham's going to be my stage manager.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and hopefully he's going to be my stage manager.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
It depends on my audition as stage manager for him.
So you're going to stage manage Academia Nuts?
Yes.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
So we've talked about Academia Nuts. The second show is going to be The Man from Stratford.
Right.
You've already briefly mentioned that that's an original work written by your wife, Dee O'Brien, where she's taken, we use the word curated. She's taken sort of bits from the collection of Shakespeare's works,
Right.
tied them together. Is this, should we view that? Go ahead.
And the last 15 minutes is the
farce.
The farce.
Yeah,
Tom
Hamlet in
Stopper's
15.
15-minute
Yeah.
Hamlet, which is really a misnomer because it's the 13-minute Hamlet followed by the 2-minute Hamlet.
Okay.
And if you thought condensing 4 hours down into 13 minutes was difficult,
right,
wait until you see the 2-minute Hamlet.
I'm sure it's
just
rapid fire. What's Rick Bronson was telling me about a show, and at the end they recap the whole show.
That's
I'm failing.
Same style.
Is what?
Same style.
Same style, right?
Yeah.
What do you happen to know what show I'm thinking of? As if I was Johnny Carson on the Tonight Show. What show? It doesn't matter because we're not doing it.
Remember?
No, none of the three of us can remember.
Yeah, right on.
So.
Sign of age. Sign of age. So is the goal of The Man from Stratford to sort of introduce audiences to Shakespeare and say, hey, this is that collection of work, or is it something more meaningful than that?
This particular collection is a collection of villains.
Okay.
And she's done collections of lovers, collections of idiots.
Mm-hmm.
And this one's a collection of villains, except for the comedy at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's showing how even the hard parts can be fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did a show, original piece, When the Righteous Triumph at Stageworks. And I had the dubious honor of playing the Klan's leader. And even though that's a hard role to take on, especially given the language and the subject matter, because it's about the civil rights movement. At the end of the day, that was one of the most rewarding opportunities I think I've had in theater because, like, I'm a comedy guy. I love comedy. Dick and fart jokes make me laugh. Right. But when you do something like that, where you really have to immerse yourself into this character that is not you, and make an audience react to you, not by laughing or by falling in love with you, but by hating you. So then you get your protagonists over at the end. Man, like that, my fur's starting to stand up a little bit.
Well, the Richard piece that she's doing, Richard III, the guy that everybody loves to hate, that everybody thinks has got a big hump on his back and was the most evil creature ever to sit the throne of England. In the way that she's showing him off, he, assuming that he does his job properly, and I assume he will, and I know he will because I know the guy is doing it, he is going to be a friend of the audience. The audience are going to really like him. They're going to be rooting for him against these other people on the stage. And that's an interesting take on Richard, is to make him sympathetic. And yet he's killed all these people on his way to the throne.
Mm-hmm.
It's like making Darth Vader sympathetic.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah. Uncle Darth.
Yeah. Uncle Darth.
Yeah.
Not Bob, Uncle Darth.
Yeah. And, and the same with the little piece of the Scottish show that she's doing.
McDonald's.
Right. Yeah. Where Lady MacDonald is, we see her, she's, the instigator of all of this. She's the murderous bitch behind it all, right? And yet the way that Dee is presenting her in this piece is we have a lot of sympathy for her. We see her as a truly broken woman that needs our help, needs our sympathy. And this is something that Dee manages to do. She pulls these different aspects out of the characters, and she makes the audience see them in this other light that they wouldn't ordinarily see them in. And I love that.
No, that sounds like a great fun ride, right?
Yeah, it is.
To have you just turn the character on its head.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And man.
And things like having Lenny as a witch.
Mm-hmm. Right, because
Yeah, because everybody knew that was the role that he wanted.
I'm sure she told you I was like, I don't think this is me. Like, you can probably find somebody way better to pull off a witch than me because it's just not who I am. Mm-hmm. But here we are.
Yeah. And he's going to be a great witch.
It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
It's going to be fine.
And even if the preceding hour and a half isn't exactly to your liking, just remember that every 15 minutes it changes.
Right.
Right. And then at the end, you've got the 15-minute Hamlet.
Which is a raucous fun.
Which is just, it is just such a ride.
I look forward to doing it, honestly. Yeah.
There was one of the, I've seen the 15-minute Hamlet a number of times now. And one of my favorites was one where they had only 3 actors playing all of the parts. Mm-hmm. And you can play from 3 to 20 actors in this. And one of the segments of it is where Hamlet and the other guy, I'm old, are having a sword fight. And so the guy who's playing both those parts, right, he has a costume on, which is black on one side and white on the other, black on his left side, white on his right side. And his sword is black on one side and white on the other, right? And he dances around the stage having a sword fight with himself.
Sounds so fun.
Absolutely fabulous. I wish I could do that sort of thing.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
And that's the sort of stupid things that we get up to.
That sounds fit. It just sounds like it's going to be a great night at the theater. No matter what show you catch at TheatreFor, it's going to be, you might not know that you like it walking in the door, but you're going to like it when you walk out.
Yes.
And definitely trust the creative minds over there at TheatreFor, because it sounds like not only are they going to give their audiences something they didn't know they wanted, but they're going to give their actors something that they didn't know that they wanted either. And when you have those two things together, I think you're well on your way to making magic happen at a theater that night. Guys, I want to thank you both so much for coming in. Is there anything else you would like to add about TheatreFor? You heard it here first.
Just an actor make a noise if there's no one here to listen.
Just one thing.
What's up?
The password for the Wi-Fi is TheatreFor is a wonderful place.
Oh. Oh, man. Graham Jones, Mike Cote, thank you guys both so much for joining me today. It has been a blast. I look forward to seeing what comes next out of TheatreFor, and I wish you guys the biggest luck in it. Oh, actually opening on August 22nd, and for many, many, many years of giving actors and audiences what they've been looking for.
Thank you.
This has been Marshall Pat. I'm sorry, what was that?
Thanks for having us.
Oh, absolutely. It's been my 100% pleasure. Once again, you can catch TheatreFor. They're off Highland Avenue in Clearwater, or visit them online at TheatreFor.com, TheatreFor.com. This has been Talking with Marshall Paddons. Thank you all so much for listening. Until next time, goodbye.